Welcome back to In Ohio Country Today, and with me is Sean Wintzer, Vice President at GA Wintzer and Sons. And Sean, give us a little bit of background about yourself, and then we'll get into what GA Wintzer and Sons actually does for Ohio agriculture here in Wapakoneta, Ohio.
Well, like you said, Alan, I'm Sean Wintzer with GA Wintzer and Son. I've been involved in the business basically since I was 18, working part-time when I would come home from college, and that's kind of basically how everybody did it in my family. You'd work while you were going to school and then work basically out in the plant during the summers. And essentially, in doing that, you learn the business from the ground up.
You know, Sean, growing up here in the community, you know, I've lived here all my life as well. Matter of fact, my office is catty-cornered across the street from your corporate office here. And, you know, GA Wintzer and Sons has been involved in the community, done a lot for the community over the years, and it's been here a long time. I mean, I could talk about it, but just give us a background of how long you've been in business and really how the business started.
Well, we could be here for a while, Alan. This is our 170th year anniversary. You believe that? And I'm actually sixth generation. So we've been around in the community basically since it was founded. 1848 is our claimed start date. And originally, well, we've changed a lot over the years. Originally, we started off, we basically traded furs with the Shawnee Indians who were here at the time. And then we started doing, basically we started off as a tannery. We tanned hides with oak bark and chicken manure until about the turn of the century. And then in the early 1900s, they kind of fell behind in the tanning industry. New technology was coming about with chromium chemicals and different ways of tanning and defleshing hides. And they kind of fell behind back then. And then for a period of about 20 years, they were just basically a broker. They would still go around and collect hides from local butcher shops and slaughterhouses, and they would basically grade the hides, salt them, cure them, and sell them. And then in about the 20s, actually, Carl Wintzer, who was GA's son, he went off to school at Ohio State, didn't like it, came back home, and GA said, well, you know, if you're not going to go to school, you can't work here. So Carl went off to Chicago, and back in the early 1900s, that's when the meatpacking industry was really, really huge in Chicago. So he got a job at a packing plant, and he was in charge of the rendering line. So back then, packing plants did everything from slaughtering to processing the meat to having their own rendering line, and Carl was in charge of the rendering. And basically, he had worked his way up to a position of foreman in a period of 6 months, and at that point, GA said, well, if you're good enough to be a foreman there, you can come home and work for me. So he came back, and he brought all that knowledge that he learned in Chicago back here to Wapakoneta, and he realized, you know, we were already going to slaughterhouses, picking up the inedibles, or not picking up the inedibles yet, but picking up the hides, and we might as well start picking up the inedible material as well. So basically, we started off with an old batch cooker, an old kettle-style cooker, open top, in a lean-to shack next to one of the meat markets out by 67 and 75. And that's how we started rendering. And that was about the 1920s, so we've been doing that for about 100 years now. Then in 43, we started a plant then at that point, and then in 1943, the plant actually burned down, and my grandfather, Fred, was in the Navy at that time, and there were a lot of women that were dependent on the business, and Carl had passed away, and the plant burned down, and he was granted a leave from the Navy to come home and work, essentially. So he took the business over, and he was, I think, 23, but he was very young. And he built a new plant out at our current location, out on Dixie Highway, out on 25A. He purchased one of the DUP's first continuous rendering systems, put in one of the state's first private wastewater treatment plants. You know, Fred really pioneered a lot back in the day and took a lot of risks. You know, then my father, Gus, and Carl as well. And him and Carl have both been active ever since. My father's still involved in the business. Obviously, Carl passed away a little over a year ago. But now we have several family members still in the business today. Like I had mentioned earlier, I'm sixth generation. Carl's son Mark is involved in the business. My brother-in-law, Andy Walters, is involved in the business. He used to work at Dannon Yogurt. He would basically go over to different countries, look at equipment, figure out how it runs, purchase it, bring it back to the United States, train people, get it installed, and train people on how to run it. So he had a good food grade production background that transitioned into our feed grade material that we make.
Well, Sean, that's a long time. That's all been a huge transition, and obviously from trading furs with the Indians unto today. You want to just kind of bring us, now that we're here in 2018, what some of the final products are that you guys are producing today, and how that all fits into the agricultural part of what's going on here in Ohio?
We pick up animal byproducts and used cooking oil. And animal byproducts, for those of you who don't know, is any part of the animal that humans don't consume. So in this country, that's 50% of the animal. So that includes all the internal organs, heads, feet, offal, blood, bones, fat, whatever humans don't consume, that's what we get. And basically what we do with that then is we grind it up so it's in uniform size, and we cook it. And about half that material is water. So we cook off all the water, and we recover the fat and the protein from that material. So by the time we're done with it, you have it's a protein meal. We make a couple different kinds. But what that is then is that protein meal is then used for anyone who manufactures animal feed. So we don't actually make animal feed or dog food or livestock feed. What we make is an ingredient in feed. So we make protein meals and then feeding fats as well. So with the used cooking oil, a lot of people have probably seen our bins out back of restaurants. So anytime that the fryer oil gets dirty and it needs change, they can put that in our bin. And what we do is we heat that up, we cook all the water out of it, filter it, and by the time we're done with it, you're left with just a nice clean fat that then can be sold into animal agriculture as a feed ingredient, which provides calories and energy for the animal to grow. So that's pretty much what rendering is in a nutshell.
Where does typically most of your finished product go?
Well, for example, a lot of the red meat that we collect from slaughterhouses and butcher shops and grocery stores, we make meat and bone meal out of that. And domestically, a lot of that goes to the egg layers. Not too far from here, there's a lot of egg layers in Mercer and Darke County and Auglaize County as well. Ohio is actually the second leading egg-producing state in the nation, next to Iowa. So we've got a big customer base here right in our backyard, and a lot of our feeding fat goes into the egg-laying diet as well. So meat and bone meal actually provides it's got a lot of calcium in it, and that provides a really hard eggshell anyways. You go to the store, and sometimes you get those soft, kind of yellowish eggshells. That's because they've been fed, like a vegetarian diet typically. We make a poultry meal as well, which is, Cooper Farms over in St. Henry is one of our big suppliers and customers as well. And then Miller Poultry up in northern Indiana, which is really close to Michigan. They supply us with raw material. What they do is they make chicken and turkey for human consumption. So the offal, or the byproduct from that, is what we get, and we make a poultry meal out of that, which is really high in protein. And a lot of that we actually export to Indonesia and Vietnam. So people wouldn't think that, but fish really like it. They feed it shrimp. And what that does, believe it or not, is they feed that to the shrimp, and then they sell that back to the U.S. because that poultry meal actually kind of makes it taste a little less fishy and a little more like chicken. And the U.S. eats that up. So a lot of stuff that you get from Sam's Club probably has poultry meal right here in Ohio anyways.
Well, Sean, in production of those materials, I'm sure that quality is of the utmost importance. You know, how do you guys handle your quality control?
Well, we have certified third-party and independent laboratories that we send everything off to throughout the week, and we have many, well, we call them critical control points within our production lines that we check throughout the day, throughout the shift, and basically, and also we have a pretty steady mix of raw material coming in. So we're able to, you know, depending on what we've got for the day, we're able to know pretty much what the protein and calcium and ash content is going to be, because, you know, like I said earlier, we kind of have a pretty steady supplier base of raw material. So we're able to make our guarantees and make sure that people are getting the same quality product from us.
With all the product that you produce and actually bringing the raw material in, it's quite a daunting task, and you guys have a very well-oiled machine when it comes to moving the product around.
Yes, we do. We actually have a lot bigger footprint than what people initially think. We actually go out about 150 miles, roughly, for finished product delivery and incoming raw material. We've got a fleet of about 200 trucks and trailers. Approximately 125 of those are trailers, and about 75 of those are tractors, the majority being S Volvo tractors. So we rely on those trucks. Obviously, they've been very reliable for us, and S has done a good job at keeping our fleet on the road besides our own truck maintenance shop that we actually have. We actually travel over 2 million miles a year, believe it or not. So, and people are always surprised to be up in Michigan or over by Indianapolis or Cleveland or Cincinnati and see our trucks rolling down the road.
Well, you know, when you talk about the trucks, and I got to mention this because not everybody has an orange truck that's actually green.
When you see an orange truck, think green, right? I mean, that's what we do. We take something that's essentially viewed as useless, and we render it back into a usable product. So we recycle anyways, and we've been doing it way before it was cool to be doing it.
Well, thanks, Sean, for being with us. And if somebody wanted to find out more information about how you could help them be environmentally sound, where can they go?
Best way to do that is to visit our website. You can go to jwintzer.com. There's a phone number on there, and then there's a link on there that you can click on, type in some information, and it'll send us an email, and we'll get a hold of you.
Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Alan.
We'll be back with more in Ohio Country Today right after this.